welcome Tara to Raw and Cooked Vegan.
Hello, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to have you. And Tara has the YouTube channel 40BelowFruity, and I'm sure there's an associated website with that, right?
Yeah, it's just 40belowfruity.com, 40 the number below fruity, and yeah,
Yeah.
and Facebook page as well.
I love that title, and so my first question is, does it ever actually get 40 below up there?
It got close last winter. I move around a fair bit. I travel a lot. So just to give an idea to people who are wondering, sometimes, especially this winter that I'm in a warmer climate, it's my whole idea is going from one extreme to another. So constant extreme of lifestyle is what is how I live. But last it got down to minus 35 in the interior of British Columbia. It was terrible. I don't want to live in that kind of climate, but I waited for minus 40. I did so that I could do a video. It never came, unfortunately. But the whole idea of 40 below, even though it's not always that temperature, is just the idea of cold climate raw food.
Well, yeah, and Tara, you know what I love about it is there is often a question, which I'm going to talk to you about a little bit later in the interview, but it's like how some people will wonder, how can you eat fruit in that kind of, everybody wants to eat warm foods, and so we're going to talk about that. But first, can you tell the viewers a little bit about your family upbringing and how was your family oriented towards diet and exercise?
Sure. Oh, that's a question I haven't been asked before. That's interesting. I was raised on your standard American diet, to be honest. When I was a kid, I was ridiculed so badly, and I never understood it because I was the fat one. And I mean, I wasn't morbidly obese or anything like that, but I was about 175 pounds at 11 years old, probably about 5'4". So big enough to have a real impact on my self-esteem and self-confidence. And I was raised, I mean, my parents tried to do the best that they could, but they didn't know anything about nutrition. So they raised us on the bias of what they were taught when they were kids, which wasn't anything on nutrition. So my mom did try to make home cooked meals, and she did the best she could, but we didn't like vegetables. I literally did not eat a vegetable probably from the time I was 2 years old until I was about 16, like not even one, maybe a slice of tomato on a hamburger.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I was so anti-vegetable or fruit for that matter. I wouldn't touch the stuff. And so we never kept it in the house, and she wanted to make us happy, so she didn't feed it to us. I ate French fries. I don't know if that's considered a vegetable.
So, and did you guys eat a lot of meat and dairy and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I had a habit actually. It was kind of my comfort because I was a fat kid and I didn't have a lot of friends. I would come home after school and I would pour myself 2 big glasses of milk, and then I ate about a whole package of these cookies, President's Choice decadent cookies, by myself, and I would like pour the milk on them. And I was a huge dairy eater. And during my high school years, my teenage years, I went to a restaurant that we have here, a fast food restaurant called Wendy's, kind of like McDonald's. And I would eat Wendy's almost every single day, probably for about 3 or 4 years, or McDonald's or some other form of fast food, and pizza and chicken fingers and any animal product you can think of.
Yep. Okay. All right. And let's see. So your mom just kind of fed you to make you happy, and did folks in your family have various illnesses associated with that diet?
Oh yeah. Actually, my mom's mother, sorry, died from cancer, and my aunt passed away a few years ago from breast cancer, and my great aunt also died of cancer, and I believe my grandmother on my father's side had breast cancer. So cancer is everywhere in my family. Diabetes as well. Almost, I'd say a good half my family has diabetes or diabetic symptoms. And yeah, I mean, you could definitely see the correlation between disease and diet, but we just never thought of it.
Yeah. So tell us what happened to you. What was it that like first got you thinking, hey, maybe there's a different way?
Yeah, maybe there's something else. Well, I had nothing to do with health, I can tell you that, because I was just fat for so long that I hated the idea of being fat. And it wasn't because I was shallow that I wanted to be thin. That had nothing to do with it, really. And it wasn't for anybody else that I wanted to be thin either. I wanted to be thin for me because I had always felt so terrible about myself that I thought that was the only way I could be happy. So I just searched when I was a teenager. I searched for every diet you could think of. I did Slim Fast and The Zone and high protein and general calorie restriction and trying to only eat at certain times of the day, and then take diuretic teas or drink alcohol in place because it had lower calories.
Yeah.
You name it, I tried it, and I was so desperate. And I picked up a book when I was about 18. I had just finished the Zone diet about a year and a half before that, and I was doing really well. I got down to the lowest weight I'd ever been, and therefore I was happier. But it led into severe binging because I was restricting my calories, and it never lasts long term. So
that's how long, like you mentioned, you tried all these different things. Like, how much time would you spend on each of these, and then especially the Zone?
I mean, the Zone I did for about 8 months. That was the longest diet I was able to maintain. And it was through sheer willpower. I don't even know how I did it. I was eating 1,200 calories a day and exercising 6 days a week.
Jesus.
Yeah, and I never got fit. That's the thing. It never.
And I should know this, but tell me if I'm wrong. Zone is kind of a high protein, high fat thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like what is it? 60% protein. I don't know, something like maybe 40% protein, 30% fat.
Like a paleo primal kind of thing.
Oh yeah, and I mean it's not healthy because I would still include crap in my diet, just in smaller amounts.
Yeah. And what were some of the negative symptoms you experienced while you were on that?
My skin, it never cleared up from these diets, and I never made that correlation between diet and skin. I had a really, really hard time digesting food, and I would constantly be bloated and feel, if you can't digest properly and you can't go to the bathroom properly, it affects everything.
Yeah.
I also had low energy and constant mood swings where literally when I would finish at the gym, I also worked at the gym too, so I was constantly bombarded with these ideas of high protein. And I always had this shake for lunch that would always only last a couple of hours in terms of my hunger, satiating it. And when I got picked up by my mom from the gym, I was ravenous and I was so angry. I remember just reaming out on her so many times for no reason. And she went, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" Literally turned into a monster because I was so hungry. So it really changed how I acted to people and how I felt about myself.
That's interesting. And did you initially, when you started, you probably lost some weight. So you're like, hey, this is the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Definitely.
Yeah.
But I lost weight with every diet plan at the beginning. It was only I actually sustain it. It never happened.
All right. So you tried it for 8 months, and then did you decide, look, there's just too many problems with this? What was the last? What got you to thinking about animal products not being a good source of nutrition?
Okay, well, it started on a summer day, and it was the last day I did the Zone, and it wasn't a conscious decision. Well, I mean, perhaps it was a conscious decision, more of an unconscious one. And my family was having a barbecue, and I was so sick and tired of restricting myself. And I went, I'm going to eat a hot dog. And then I started this rebellious phase where I ate everything because I could, and I wasn't going to let anyone tell me any different. And it lasted almost 2 years, and then I found the book Skinny Bitch. And again, I just wanted to get skinny again, and I was so frustrated all over again, gained all the weight back plus more. And I found this book, and it just changed my life overnight. It opened my eyes to how animal products hurt our bodies and hurt the animals as well. And I'd never even considered, I remember meeting a friend just randomly on a bus, maybe about 6 months before I found this book. And she'd mentioned she was vegan, and I went, oh, because I had said, why don't we go for lunch together? And then she mentioned she was vegan, and I went, well, maybe we won't go out for lunch together. But then when I found Skinny Bitch, I went, I know somebody who's vegan. I have to go talk to her now. So I went vegan overnight then. It was so clear to me. I couldn't deny what they said in the book. I just couldn't deny it any longer.
Do you remember who wrote that? I'm familiar with the title. Who wrote it?
Yeah, it's Rory Friedman and Kim Barnewin are the authors.
Okay. And is the message there? It's basically, is it a vegan diet? Is it low fat? Is it or is it just vegan?
It would be focused on low fat, high carbohydrate, eating lots of fruits and vegetables, not restricting and not limiting yourself, but just eating for health rather than to reach a number on a scale.
Okay. And then so you started to follow it, and did you start to see beneficial results?
Oh yeah. My digestion improved automatically because I'd been bunged up, and I thought there was a problem because I went, this can't be normal. I can't be going to the bathroom every day. It's a chore, And so I looked it up on I was afraid. I didn't know any better.
No, yeah, it's amazing. Some people think it's normal to have one bowel movement a week. Yeah, it's crazy.
Not normal. Not normal. I felt more energy right away. I could eat double the food and lose weight, and that was big. For me, that was everything because I loved eating, and I always had to feel like eating was something bad and something that I shouldn't do. So
I love this, and I know a lot of people like you are trying to get this message out. Let's just say it again, loud and clear for the viewer. You were able to eat twice as much as you used to, and you were still losing weight.
yeah, yeah, I lost 15 pounds effortlessly. I didn't do anything other than eat. I actually made a whole tray of cookies to myself, like 36 cookies one night. Should I even say this? And I ate them all, and I felt sick afterwards, and I went, I don't think I should do that again. But that's what I mean. Obviously, you shouldn't do that. That's not really the right way to go. But I felt like I could eat so much more, and I felt so much more joy in eating. It didn't make me sick.
I love that. I love what you're saying. And like a cookie, you could make a cookie out of, say, like a natural grain and a natural sweetener, and it would be relatively healthy compared to a lot of animal products and a lot of other things.
Yeah, I used banana and something like rice flour and some peanut butter, and it was all salt-free, it was low fat, and it was great.
All right. So this got you started, and then tell us a little bit about what happened along the way. It sounds like most of whatever health issues you had kind of cleared up. You lost the weight. Your skin looks great now. So, and how long have you been doing this?
Well, I've been vegan for just over 6 years. My vegan anniversary was in January 5th. And I will be 4 years raw vegan, 100% raw, in March of this year.
Okay, so that's a great question then. What was it? So when you did the skinny bitch thing, it was kind of a cooked vegan thing, right?
Partially cooked and partially raw. They suggested juicing and that kind of thing.
Okay. And then what got you thinking about a possible more raw approach?
Well, once I read Skinny Bitch, I really started to question the whole idea of health because I'd always been into it, but such opposing beliefs, I didn't know who to believe and what to follow. So I went to the only person I knew who knew anything about health, and it was my Aunt Lori. And she'd always been the weird one in the family. We were always told, don't talk to her about health because she's a vegetarian, and my family thought it was cruel to feed someone vegetarian because they had the opinion that it would you had to restrict, you had to limit your food. But actually, it's the opposite. And she taught me that it's about not restricting and not limiting, but eating for health and abundance. And I went
now let me ask you, does the family now categorize you as like your aunt?
Oh, yeah, except I'm way far gone. I'm the total weirdo in the family now.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah, it's they just don't know what to think, to be honest, because they understand, they think, I don't know. My dad said to me recently, he said, it's great that you can eat this much fruits and vegetables now, but when you get older, you're going to start noticing problems. And I just rolled my eyes and went, okay, Dad, I'm sure that your steak isn't causing problems, but my bananas are. Okay.
Right. All right, so you started eating more raw, and did you? And would be interesting to hear from you, like you obviously noticed a lot of profound benefits when you went cooked vegan with a high raw content. What were some of the benefits you noticed when you went from that kind of mildly cooked vegan to high raw vegan?
High raw. Well, what did I notice? I mean, I went to high fat raw first, so that was my one kind of blip. And I noticed a lot of downfalls with that, but I've done so many videos about that. I mean, it made me sick. It didn't make me feel well because I was eating like 80% fat in my diet, and that's not sustainable too. But once I switched to 80-10-10, the high carb, low fat, high in fruits and vegetables, the magic started to happen. I had gone 7 years of taking acne medication, antibiotics, 1,000 milligrams every single day. I used skin creams on my skin that made my skin burn, literally burn, where I had to go to the hospital. And I had dealt with this for so many years that I had given up hope. And within 4 months, that's it. That's all it took for my skin to go from cystic acne with pocketed scars in my face to healing and not having any pimples. 4 months.
Now let me ask you, that 4 months, so you did the skinny bitch thing for 2 years, and that didn't completely resolve the acne. So it was going raw that did.
Yes. The acne for me, I mean, my partner went vegan, his acne disappeared. For me, it was never a dairy related acne. Unfortunately, I wish it had been, but
Yeah.
it was how pure my diet is, I guess I could say, because I now don't include nuts and seeds in my diet or any salt. And there are certain things that my body just simply won't tolerate. It's very sensitive, and that's taken a long time for me to learn to cope with that. Is that my body, when it doesn't want something, it tells me, and it doesn't give me an option. But yeah, when I went raw, 4 months for me, and in that 4 months, it's important to say, because everyone just thinks it was miraculous. I went from acne to clear skin. No, that 4 months was the worst my skin has ever been. I was afraid to go out in public. It was so bad. And I knew at the time, my partner, Ryan, who was very patient with me, but he was thinking, if this diet's so great, why does your skin look like this?
Yeah, and that's really interesting. So did you have a kind of intuition that it was like a detox going on, or because you kept at it?
Yeah, I was desperate. It was pure desperation, to be honest.
All right.
Well, I've already done everything else.
I know, and I'm sure you didn't want to take medication anymore. You were sick of that, I'm sure.
To be honest, when I went vegan, my medication stopped working. Totally stopped working.
That's interesting. So when you were eating a SAD diet, the medication worked.
Yeah.
You went vegan, and it wouldn't. That's really interesting.
Literally, it was scary how quickly my body built up an immunity to it and went, no, this doesn't work. It was, and then I tried to find alternate things like hormonal therapies, and that didn't work and all that. But I, tried a different medication that didn't work. So my body was leading me towards this path. It was such a blessing now that I see that I dealt with acne for so many years, that I did have it for 9-10 years really badly, because it got me to where I'm at now.
Did you ever have to take the Accutane? Did you ever try that?
It was suggested to me, and I had a friend who was on Accutane, and she got very sick from it. Her hair started to fall out. Her skin started really peeling. It was very dry. Her lips started to have bubbles, like almost ulcers all over them. And she had to get her liver checked once every 2 weeks. And I went, yeah. I knew enough at that point that that scared the shit out of me. Sorry for it.
No, really. That's smart.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is that more harmful than taking antibiotics for 7 years? I don't know. But I knew I couldn't do Accutane after seeing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so awesome. So, okay, so 4 months and your acne's totally gone. Now, I remember I was looking around on some threads on 30Bad the other day, and I think this was like a couple of years ago, and you were going through like this funky detox, and it took a while. Yeah. And I was trying to pull it up before the interview so I could remember. Maybe you remember it, but it's evident that you resolved it. So I wonder I don't know if that was associated with the acne or something else in terms of the digestion. I wonder if you could talk about that and how it got resolved.
Well, digestion's been a problem my whole life. And I think people expect to come to the raw diet 6 months later, be completely healed. Newsflash, that doesn't happen. It never happens. And I know myself, I was frustrated because I don't want to wait years to have great digestion. Well, it has been, and it's taken a very long time, and that's something I've come to terms with now. But it's been off and on, to be honest, and I would seemingly not really change anything about my diet within the first couple of years, and I would go through these waves where it'd be like, great digestion, shit digestion, great digestion. It would just go up and down, and there was no reasoning for it at all. It would just start to work, and then it stopped to work. So I'd try to go overt-free by not eating any excess fats, because I know that can hinder digestion, and that wouldn't work. And to be honest, I think it's so important for people to realize that there are very few people who have gone before us with this diet. So I didn't have anyone else to compare myself to. I didn't know anybody who, when they ate salt, their body started to shut down. I didn't know anybody who was allergic to nuts and seeds in the capacity that I was. I didn't know anybody. So it was all a big experiment. I had no one to base my experience off of.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It was tough. It was very, I loved the way I felt otherwise.
So, okay, so you were experiencing a lot of positive benefits. The digestion was kind of elusive, and yet would you say that as years have passed, it's as a whole, it's progressively getting better?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, if I didn't love this lifestyle, I would not be living it today. Yeah. I am so over the idea of sticking to something because there's some dogma behind it. I actually eat this way because I genuinely, truly love it. And I mean, to be able to eat 3,000 calories in a day has been my dream since I was a child. I know that seems silly, and people think maybe my life is focused around food, and in large part it is. And I couldn't ask for anything better because I love food. It's been as a part of me my whole life, and now I get so much joy from it that I wouldn't change it at all.
Yeah, it does not sound silly. And, I was fortunate. I've always kind of been thin, so I never had a weight issue, even though I ate a ton of crap. I did have really bad acne, but I can see, especially, I think, for women and the way the culture does the body thing, what a nightmare that's got to be.
Oh,
So,
it's
yeah.
incredible. And I have to say that though it does take time and there is some initial weight gain in the beginning because more water-rich foods and higher calories and all that, you do lose the weight, and it's so amazing to feel that.
All right.
It takes a long time, but it takes a long time to gain health. It takes a long time to heal your body from years of abuse.
Yeah, yeah. Just one last question on this. Can you characterize a little bit these changes in digestion? Like you say, you'd have a wave of where it was just fine, and then a wave where there'd be some discomfort. Is that like either constipation or diarrhea, or is that?
The waves where everything was going great, it would be like 3 or 4 bowel movements a day. When my digestion is working well, it's very efficient. Sometimes 5 or 6 times a day.
Yeah.
But when it was working poorly, it would be once a day with lots of bloating. And now I've come to characterize that as my body healing. Those periods of time, my digestion was healing itself. And often when I experienced that bloating, my body was actually getting rid of something. That's what my body does when I am quote unquote detoxing. My digestion is the first thing to kind of stop so my body can work on something else. And then it comes back to working again.
And Tara, that would totally make sense. I mean, 7 years they had you on meds. I mean,
yeah.
It would make sense. You're like, it's probably your liver's gradually throwing it off, Yeah.
Yeah. And during that time, I was told not to go in the sun and not to drink any alcohol. Well, I went in the sun all the time and I drank very heavily. So, tell a teenager that.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's an invitation. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's taken a long time to heal my body, but I'm always learning all the time that this is a journey and you never get to that place where everything is perfect. I mean, I ate total garbage for 18 years. I can't, heal that overnight. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the journey now, and I appreciate what my body has to go through to get to the optimal level of health, because that's where I want to be.
I love the point you're making. And I would also say, too, it's amazing the recuperative capacity that the body has. As soon as you do give it what it's suited to, the best diet, the best environment, Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So I imagine as you explored diet through these years, you kind of found what the best foods were for you. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that. I know there's a lot of information about this on your channel, and I see you like preparing various recipes. But maybe you could say a little bit like, fruit is your primary food? What are some of the fruits that you like best? And just maybe go through an average day.
Sure. I want to touch just on one thing you mentioned in the beginning there, because I am constantly finding out what foods are okay for my body and what foods are not. Again, I have no one to compare myself to, because most of what you would consider gurus, I don't know, maybe that's not the word, people who are leading the raw food movement, people who've been eating this way for 10 years, no one has a body like mine, to be honest. So I just want to share a quick story before I go into what I do eat mostly. And that's for the last 6 months up until January 1st, I had included corn in my diet, organic, frozen and fresh corn, frozen that was unblanched, and it took such a toll on my body.
Huh.
My acne came back on my back. I gained 15 pounds. My energy just went plummeting, and I was denying this to myself, and I thought, no, it can't be the corn because I loved it. I cut it out, and everything positive has come back into my lifestyle. So it's constantly does this work? Oh, does this work? So now I eat predominantly fruit. I always have for the last 4 years. And I eat upwards of probably about 26 to 2,700 calories worth of fruit every day, maybe a little more, 2,800. And then I eat a big vegetable meal as well. Okay. So breakfast always starts with a liter of water and exercise for me. I do a program right now called T25. It's 25 minutes of high intensity interval training. And I do that and drink a liter of water. And then I'll have my breakfast smoothie, which is always a smoothie. I love starting off the day because it's winter and there's juicy fruit is, yeah, I mean, not really in abundance. There's oranges, but I can only drink so much orange juice. So I have a big smoothie. This morning, for example, it was 5 bananas and about 15 medjool dates and about 2 liters of water, a liter and a half of water, and a drop of orange oil. And it tastes like creamy orange milk. It's so good.
Beautiful. And I think you have a Vitamix, don't you?
Yeah. It's the best investment I've ever made.
Okay. All right. And then you mentioned like a vegetable dinner. Would that generally be a salad with maybe a raw dressing?
Yes, yeah. For lunch, I usually have some sort of smoothie again. Smoothies are easy. I love them. That's what I do. Usually a green smoothie with like orange juice and peaches and that kind of thing, frozen fruit. And then, however many calories that'll be. And then dinner time, I have a big veggie meal. And lately it's been spiralized zucchini, chopped cauliflower, chopped cherry tomatoes, and baby romaine. And then a dressing of half an avocado, about half of medium zucchini, maybe a half a cup of orange juice, and one frozen mango worth of mango, and green onion. I blend that up and put it over, and it's delicious. It's great.
That sounds good.
And my favorite snack in the wintertime, the way that I work with my diet, I've always had a bit of an addictive personality, which has been very interesting on a raw food lifestyle.
I think a lot of us do.
That's why it's so easy and so great to eat so much. But usually when I find something I like, I eat it all the time until I'm so sick of it I can't look at it anymore. I can't change that and I can't help that. So
that's great. I think I think, Tara, that's actually natural, because I think if we'd been living in nature, we would have had seasons where particular fruits were more in abundance and you just gorge on them. Yeah, I think it's normal.
I agree. I think it's just in today's culture, the things that we're eating, we've got it all wrong. But when you're eating a fruit that you just love and your body's craving it and you want it, I think it means that you need it. And that makes sense.
You're making me think too, maybe you could say a couple of words about this. Sometimes people think when you tell them about a vegan diet or a raw food diet, they'll say, well, there's not very much variety. And there's absolutely as much variety as there is in the sad world, because there's not that much variety there. But also there's this principle of you don't really desire that much variety, because like you're saying, you can drink a smoothie of just bananas, it's delicious, or just bananas and dates. You don't need a lot of complexity.
Yeah, and I think so many people are used to using food for stimulation. Food is not stimulation. Food is fuel. It's meant to bring us nutrients in our body. It's not meant to stimulate us or make us feel high or low or any of that. It's just fuel, and that's that. But we have this relationship with it in today's society where it has to entertain us. And that's on a raw diet, it doesn't happen that way. So I think that, when you're craving something, you do need it. And if not if it's French fries, though.
Right.
Not if you're craving French fries. And in nature, you would find the fruit that you need to eat, and you need to be okay with eating it for a month or two until it goes out of season and you move on to something else. But that's totally natural. I feel that that's okay on a raw diet.
All right, I'm gonna go through a couple of nutrients, and I want you to give me the conclusions you've reached about them for yourself. Yep. So the first is B12. What's your take on B12?
Well, to be honest, when I was eating this corn a few months ago when I started to have bad digestive issues. And of course, I go to every other thing that it could possibly be other than the corn. And I thought, it's got to be B12, because they wouldn't test me for it here in Canada. It's supposed to be included in healthcare, but I tend to buck the system a bit because I don't like any kind of organized system. So
I like it.
And I refuse to get a health card. And you're in Canada, you're supposed to have one. So I just don't like it. And they wouldn't test me for it because they said, no, it's too expensive. You're not willing to get a health card. We're not willing to do it. And I went, okay. So I took a couple shots. What I noticed, the first one that I took, I noticed a high immediately and I felt a big difference. Then I waited for a little while and I got shots that were pure methylcobalamin B12 shots with no salt, because that was the problem I seemed to find. There was none that didn't come with salt or a saline solution. So I took those and I didn't notice a huge difference, but what I did notice is my digestion I get a lot of bloating, and I didn't really like that. It didn't feel great, but I wasn't sure what it was doing. Now, the reason I took B12 shots is because I had tried B12 sublinguals in the past, which is the liquid you put under your tongue.
Yeah.
But my digestive system, I mean, I was taking antibiotics for 7 years. I can't digest complicated things in the best of times, let alone, I don't know how much I've healed. So I think in a natural setting, in an ideal world, we would be getting B12 from the soil and we'd be manufacturing it ourselves. This is not an ideal world. Everything's washed 4 times before you get it and transported halfway across the world before you eat it. And I think that's why it's important for us to grow our own food. I'd say I would rather grow my own organic food and still eat it with a bit of grit on it than to take a shot or take a supplement. And since I did a round of B12 shots, I've chosen not to do any more because I feel fantastic. And I would rather go on how I feel intuitively than an idea of supplementation.
I love that. There's a lot of cool points that are in that, what you just said. So the first shot, now these shots, did you self-administer or did you have a nurse do them? Or?
Oh, my partner did them, and I hate needles. I'm such a wimp, and I saw a video of someone doing it themselves, and I went, yeah, right. No, Ryan did it, and he hated it, so he did it fast because he hated hurting me, and it was just an altogether very unpleasant experience. I don't like needles.
Okay. And prior to the shot, you'd been taking the sublingual oral for like once a week or once a month or
day to try
every
to
day.
Yeah. Just
Wow,
because
that's interesting that you were doing that, and then when you got that first shot, you kind of felt an effect, a positive effect.
That's how I knew I wasn't digesting it, the one that I took orally.
That's interesting.
But
Okay.
to be honest, cutting corn out of my diet improved my digestion so much more than taking B12 ever did. So I think before people immediately assume that they're missing something before getting a blood test, they should analyze what they're eating and really intuitively feel how it makes them feel, because you truly know deep down if there's something you're eating that doesn't agree with your body.
Yeah, that's interesting too. And one thing I wanted to ask you about the corn. Were you eating, so because you're raw, you were eating corn in its raw state. Were you just buying like frozen corn and then letting it thaw and then eating it? Is that?
Partially, yeah. I found one brand in particular from Costco that was unblanched and everything, and I thought, great. Frozen that was thawing, and then fresh corn as well. But it just, I mean, it doesn't digest properly. It comes out whole, so.
Okay. And you wouldn't, say again, I'm sorry, I missed that.
About 1 to 2 cups of corn a day.
Okay. And you didn't want to cook it because you want to stay 100% raw, right?
Well, the thing is that I've tried cooked food. I tried this past summer. Number one, I tried a cup of cooked corn. Did not work.
Okay.
I tried cooked Brussels sprouts. They tasted okay, but I was like, why do I want to eat these? I was just curious because there was this big phase where everyone started eating cooked food again. And I went, what's all the hype? Is it really that great? Because I couldn't even remember. I didn't really want to, but I thought, I'll try it to see what it's like. And immediately my skin reacted and I got really bloated and I went, well, that wasn't worth it. What was that about? So people told me that I tried the wrong foods, but I don't want to eat potatoes or like that. Rice, plain rice, no thanks. I love raw foods, and cooked. It's not that I want to say raw because I want to be raw. It's not that idea. It's that I feel best on raw. I love it.
It's just practical. I got you. Yeah. Okay, and another interesting thing that you mentioned there is when you were researching the B12 shots, you came across some that had salt in them. And then you were able to find one that did not. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, in Canada, you usually get a form of cyanocobalamin sold at the drugstores, and it's really cheap, but it comes in a saline solution. And I looked high and low. I called every naturopath, every compounding pharmacy you could think of to try to find pure methylcobalamin, not put in a saline solution, and also without any preservatives. So I thought, I'm not going to not eat salt and then go put it in my body by injection. So finally, I got the help of this great naturopathic doctor here, and she went to a conference, and she found one compounding pharmacy in Canada as a whole, in all of Canada.
Wow.
That would create it for me without any preservatives. And it was a place called York Downs Chemist in Toronto. So she had it sent out to Vancouver and then to Vancouver Island where I live, and then we picked it up from her.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So B12, and then can you tell me? And I think this will be interesting because you are where you're located on the globe. Vitamin D. What's your take on vitamin D?
Yeah, I actually just did a video about this because I know people are curious. I love vitamin D. I mean, if I had it my way, it'd be 30 degrees year round, but I have a relationship, a partner who loves the cold, and that's why I started 40 Below Fruity because I thought I'm gonna have to live with this forever. So might as well love the cold. I don't mean that in a bad way. I love my partner, but he loves snowboarding. So we live in a colder climate. But in Vancouver Island, it's damp and rainy all winter long. So from like October till April, no sun at all. I mean, at least if you're in a cold climate, you get the sun, even if it is -20. It's still beautiful and sunny.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have tried taking a supplement. Again, I went the form of supplement first of a vegan D3, and it didn't do anything. Now I tried a tanning bed against everyone's thing where they said it's going to cause you cancer and it'll be bad. I tried it and my mood raised immediately, and it wasn't psychological. It was actually physical. I could feel this euphoria bubbling up inside of me, and it changed everything. So while I think that tanning beds can absolutely cause cancer if you eat an acidic diet, I think a lot of things can cause cancer if you eat an acidic diet. I think tanning beds maybe once a week during the winter when you have to keep your sanity
Yeah.
and eat an alkaline diet, I think it's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I love that. I love that. You probably know this. I think Don Bennett has on his site. There's a way you can build your own sun lamp kind of contraption, but I think it's kind of expensive. But
$1,000. So I
yeah, yeah, yeah,
mean, I fully support that. I think it's great. If you got an extra 3 grand lying around, you're
yeah,
willing to go
yeah,
buy a lamp, and by all means, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. All right. And then the last one, I'm kind of curious if you've come across anything on it, is iodine. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I have heard a few things, especially when the radiation from Japan started to come over this way. And because I spend a lot of time in Japan too, I've been curious. To be honest, I don't know a lot about it. I mean, I'll tell you the truth. I'm not a scientist. And usually, again, I'm always learning on this raw lifestyle and figuring out what people are interested in, what I should be interested in. And I know people who do take iodine supplements. I know we don't get as much on this diet, on this lifestyle. But at this point, I'm not super into supplementation. So
Yeah.
why? Because I did have a blood test and nothing came back low. So as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't, that I don't require supplementation. But I think that if people really truly feel that they require a supplement to have some kelp or some sort of seaweed, but the thing is that if you're not going to take an artificial iodine supplement, then the iodine does come from sea vegetables. And I wouldn't eat something from the ocean if you paid me to be honest. I just wouldn't. I was there in Japan. I saw what happened with that tsunami and what went into the ocean. I wouldn't eat a thing from the ocean if you paid me to. I'd hardly even swim in the ocean again. I saw barrels of oil going in, full cars with tanks of gas and like dead bodies. And I mean, you know what I mean? Houses flying. Who knows what kind of chemicals were in that? The nuclear radiation seeping out. I mean, they put like something, a million tons or something like that into the ocean. And I mean, Fukushima has been leaking this whole time. So I would be very worried. That's not a conspiracy theory, by the way. That's just actually what I saw.
Common sense. Yeah.
Sense. Yeah, like there's a lot of shit going in our oceans nowadays. It's like a toxic waste dump. People just throw everything in it because they think they can, because they don't see it. So I'd be very wary about what I would choose to eat from the ocean. And I would just not. I mean, I would almost go as far as saying I'd rather be slightly deficient than eat something from the ocean.
I hear you. I hear you. How was it that you were over there? Was it just a quirk that you were there when that happened, or were you? What was going on?
I was working with Sea Shepherd, and we had gone down to Taiji. The dolphin slaughter had ended down there. We went up to northern Japan, a town called Atsuchi, Iwate Prefecture, and we were there to document the Dall's porpoise slaughter, which is another type of dolphin. And it just so happened that 3 days after we arrived, 2 days after we arrived, there was an earthquake, and the third day we had the 9.0 earthquake. And we got to safety within about 45 seconds of the water coming in. But yeah, it was a fluke. Could you call it a fluke? I don't know, because 2 weeks before I left, I had a premonition that something astronomically terrible was about to happen. And my boyfriend thought I was crazy, and he went, "What are you talking about?" And I went, "No, I know it. I know it in my bones. I got chills that something was about to happen and that I needed to be involved in it." And I had no idea how. And he went, "Oh, that's great, Tara." But and so was it a fluke? I don't know.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you've kind of brought up another subject that I totally want to hear your thoughts on, which is it sounds like you primarily took on this approach to health for, let's say, reasons of weight loss, but along the way, did you begin to become more interested in animal ethics and perhaps the environment? So how did that come about?
Well, environmentalism started when I was about 17. I took a course in school and then did a co-op at an environmental place, let's say. I don't know what you'd call it. And I've always been an environmentalist, a very avid environmentalist. Very extreme views. I usually have very extreme viewpoints in anything I do. That's just the way I am. So when I read Skinny Bitch, I was horrified. That night I had said, I wouldn't eat chickens if they weren't so stupid. I wish I could have taken that back, because I read it and I gained a new understanding for what compassion means. And I went, I love animals. I've always loved animals, and I just didn't know it. And yeah, absolutely. It just started a passion inside of me for animals. I love animals, and particularly with Sea Shepherd, probably because Sea Shepherd is the only direct action organization, and I like to kick ass. I don't like to protest. I like to get stuff done. And I agree with and support any organization that shares that viewpoint. So
I have to plead ignorance. Of course I'm familiar with Greenpeace. Can you tell me about Sea Shepherd? I'm not familiar with it.
Sea Shepherd is like a really badass version of Greenpeace.
Okay.
Founder of one of the founders of Greenpeace is the founder of Sea Shepherd, and he left or was kicked out, depending on who you're talking to, Greenpeace, because of an incident where he was stopping a seal killer from killing a seal. He took the club from the seal killer and dropped it down the ice, and that was considered abusive or violent. So he left or was kicked out of Greenpeace and started his own organization called Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, with the idea that he wasn't going to just stand by and watch this happen. Paul Watson's whole concept with Sea Shepherd is that you see a baby kitten in the street and somebody's stomping on it. You don't just walk by and go, I don't think that's right. And if you see a woman being raped, you don't just, watch. It doesn't happen that way. You don't hold up a sign. You stop them. When you see something that's happening that is immoral or wrong, you do all that you can to stop it. And so that's what Sea Shepherd operates on the premise of.
And can I ask you, Tara, in your experience participating in that, have you ever been in physical danger because of what you've been trying to do?
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. The tsunami being one inadvertently, and then again in Taiji when they love the dolphin killers. I won't say the Japanese. People seem to think there's some racism involved. It isn't. The dolphin killers, I don't see them as Japanese, because Japanese people are lovely. They are kind and compassionate, and they unfortunately have a terrible government system that loves to just stop them from knowing anything, and takes advantage of them. So dolphin killers love to make rules of what some people can do and what other people can't do, namely the people who go there to try to stop the dolphin slaughter. And one time, it was about a year and a half ago, myself and the campaign leader at the time, her name was Rosie, we were hit actually by this man that we called Turtle Man. I don't remember his name. It stems back to another incident. Irregardless, it's just a nickname so that we know who he is and who we're talking about, especially for new people who come. But he's very violent, yelling at us, and hit her and hit me, knocked my camera out of my hand and almost broke it. I mean, these people are so angry, not because of culture, because we're getting in the way of them making big money. And that's what it's all about. And yeah, but I don't really, I don't want to say I don't care about my welfare. I do care about my welfare, but I would be willing to go to a lot of lengths not thinking about my welfare, not considering it for this cause.
Well, I think it's beautiful. And it's just, it's a testimony to consciousness. I think that it's when you see an animal, you're looking at it from a different perspective. From your perspective, it deserves love and compassion just like a human being. So there seems to be, and I ate meat for many years in my life, and the popular consciousness seems to have this way of looking at animals as if they're not deserving of compassion or they don't need to be considered. So, yeah, I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful what you're doing. But so and then on that, in addition to the horror of the animal treatment, what have you learned about the damage to the environment from the animal production, animals as a source of food?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something like animal agriculture, factory farming is worse than almost every other greenhouse gas causer in the world. But I mean, you can say that you believe in global warming or not believe in global warming. It has nothing to do with that. It is abusive for the animals and abusive for the environment. There's also a lot of toxic sludge that comes out of factory farms, and it's a production line. There's a lot of animal transport that's unnecessary, and I mean, there's a lot of fruit transport as well. So we can't say that that's necessarily better. But I have to say that the environmental effects of factory farms and especially commercial fishing are terrible. And we can't deny that. You go and see those operations, and it's pretty gross.
Yeah,
really
totally. Yeah, and it's great that you bring this up. You get into these discussions with people online. There's all kinds of these primal paleo nutcases out there, and one of the arguments is eat locally, and I love it. I love it when a California vegan, a Southern California vegan says eat locally, and I'm thinking of folks like yourself. There's not a lot of fruit and veggies growing up in Canada in January, No,
there's really not. I mean, there's still squashes. You could still technically eat high-carb vegan. My partner does. Ryan does. And he loves that lifestyle, so that's great for him. Yeah, eat locally. I think if you can grow your own food in the summer, right on. Do it. Absolutely. I think that we seem to think that eating locally is just automatically better. But it's proven fact that animals take up far more water, far more land resources, and far more food. And if we were to actually stop raising animals for agriculture, then we could feed the world something like 4 times over. So yeah, you can say eat locally, but the fact is that cow, the amount of calories you're going to get from eating a steak, so much more went into that than what you're getting out of it. They take up an incredible amount of land, an incredible amount of food that you could use to feed people. Yeah. So it's not just an environmental issue, it's a world hunger issue as well. We could feed more people on a plant-based diet for cheaper.
Amen. Yeah. And because of the way animal production works, the grains they cost more. So people that are in poverty right now have to pay more for grains because animal production raises the price of grain.
Yeah, and cows eat better than half the children of the world, for God's sake. Like, I mean, if anybody has ethical values locally, it doesn't change a thing. Doesn't matter if your steak comes from down the road or across the country.
All right. One thing I'd like to hear your thoughts on. Sometimes people hear misinformation about the effects of a raw food diet on women's physiology in terms of ovulation. And I wonder if you could say a little bit about that, like maybe what you personally experienced, and did you get benefits going raw in terms of like PMS and stuff like that, and just whatever you've learned along the way?
I've learned a few things. Number one, I only took birth control once for 1 month. Thank God I didn't take it for longer. A quick note is that I think a lot of women are on birth control for a lot of years. And then they go off of it, come to raw food lifestyle, and then blame the raw food lifestyle for having PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or blame it for not ovulating or for not getting their monthly flow. But I think that we have to go a lot deeper than that and think of how much we've abused our bodies and abused our hormones through the food we've eaten in the past. Because I used to have terribly painful periods and PMS, and starting when I was quite young. And it was a lot to do with the food that I was eating. I ate a lot of dairy and a lot of meat. Since going raw, as long as I keep, this is something that's really key, is keeping the fat low. Because when I went to raw vegan diet and I was eating a ton of fat, oh my gosh, I had the worst pains. And I can't tell you why, because there's very little research done on this. And again, we're all just like a big science experiment here. Yeah. A good science experiment. But when I switched to low-fat raw and I keep all the nuts and seeds out and I keep all the salt out, I have no pain, none. I used to have to miss school because I would stay in bed and I'd have to have a hot compress on my forehead and be, have 4 Advil pills and hot tea, and I'd be aching, my legs would be aching, and I'd feel like I was going through labor. and missed school for days because of that. And I don't have any of that anymore. And I also used to get very angry and very moody and lash out at loved ones for no reason. And it was the PMS, right? The premenstrual syndrome. Where for like a week beforehand, I just get so angry and frustrated with things for no good reason. And I don't notice any of that anymore. And actually the flow has significantly decreased, which is fantastic. And yeah, it's all around just improved. Now, instead of feeling any kind of pain or anger like I used to, or hemorrhaging even, I just feel a little bit drained, like I need more calories and like I need time to rest. It's like an intuitive feeling with my body that I just need to step back from all these outer things, from YouTube, from life, from coaching, and just focus on myself. And it's actually nice.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I wonder, because as you say, a phenomena which I think is common for women who go raw, that the flow decreases. I wonder if it decreases to an extent that sometimes people mistake that for not ovulating, but the truth is they're still ovulating, they just are having a very light flow.
Ovulation has nothing to do with how much you're bleeding. To be completely honest and frank about it, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because you could not have you could not have your monthly flow for years, but you could still be ovulating. The only way to know that is by using a basal thermometer. You need to check your temperature. Any women out there not sure. And if you're not ovulating, think back to what you've been doing with your body. Did you have anorexia, bulimia? Were you on birth control? Were you eating high amounts of dairy? And did you, reach puberty at 8 years old or something? There's always reasons. Because that's happening. That's not normal. It used to be like 17 or 18, so that's not normal.
Yeah.
I think we have to look a lot deeper in these problems. It's not raw food. Raw food doesn't cause issues. Raw food highlights and tries to heal the issues that you've already had for years and maybe didn't know it.
Yeah. Great point. All right. Let's see. I think I've kind of covered most everything. But let me think now. Is there anything that you'd like to tell folks, like people that are maybe coming to this for the first time, or maybe folks that have been doing it a while, just anything that comes to mind that you'd like to share?
Yeah, have patience. It doesn't happen overnight. I don't care how much you want it to. It doesn't. You have to give your body time to heal, and you have to be kind to yourself and compassionate to yourself. We are far too hard on ourselves, especially as women. We have to look perfect and we have to be perfect. This is not about perfection. This is about your time to focus on you. That's it.
That's beautiful. And you touched on this a little bit, like kind of your exercise regimen. Is that something that do you kind of force yourself to do it? Is it something you enjoy doing? Is it, how did that come about? Because I know, like Harley talks a lot about, you get carved up enough and you want to exercise. So have you found that to be true?
Yeah, absolutely. I have so much energy. I mean, all the time.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of emotional issues with me and my past for exercise, because I used to exercise because I had to. So for years, I hated the fact that I had to do it. So it was a lot of emotional work for me to get over that. I have just begun exercising in the last month, where I've finally gotten over that whole idea that I don't have to. If I want to do it, I can do it. And I have found joy in it. I love it. I love the way it makes me feel. I love the changes I see in my body and being able to feel strong. And that's something I've never quite felt before, because I've always felt weak. Not always physically, but emotionally, mentally, with my diet. And I've always just seen myself as a mentally strong person, but not being able to be physically strong, because I was never in control. Now I love the way I eat. I love the way I live. And I exercise because I get joy out of it. I love the endorphin rush afterwards and just feeling good. And so that's why I do it now.
I love that. That's a great point. Oh, go ahead.
There's a day where I don't want to exercise. Like today, I'm going through heavy corn detox, believe it or not. I don't force myself to. It's not some ideal anymore.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you're kind of implying there. There's this kind of feedback thing between physical and psychological. You can be mentally strong, but then if you're also physically strong, it kind of reinforces it. Yeah.
And it feels good. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, Tarah, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure. I could go on. I know I'm missing a lot of stuff, but maybe sometime in the future we could do another one.
Yeah, another one.
Oh, I know. Can you tell the audience again the name of your YouTube channel, the website, the book you're doing? And I know I did see on one of your videos that you've got this challenge, the 30-day challenge. Tell us a little bit about those things.
You can find me at 40 Below Fruity. It's literally 40 Below Fruity, meaning cold climate raw. That's on my YouTube and on my Facebook, and 40belowfruity.com. Right now, actually, we had a January challenge going through 40 Below Fruity. For all of you who live in cold climates and need support and recipes and information, it's all free, so you can come and join us at the group. We have a private Facebook group too, so that people can get support without biased opinions coming in from friends or family. And we're doing a February challenge too, because it was so successful. And so it's a 30-day raw or raw till 4 for people who maybe can't eat 100% raw or can't afford it or don't have the availability wherever they live in the world. And you can go over to 40belowfruity.com/30-day challenge. All the information is there if you want to join the challenge. And I send out personal emails to every single person who signs up so that you can get all the links and all that. And I'm starting to write a book. Yeah, it's exciting. It's very exciting. You've surely heard of Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yeah.
And that's a book written by Jack Canfield. Well, I'm doing something very similar, but it's going to be for raw foodists, for people who are looking for hope and inspiration, or just a good laugh, or to feel some sort of emotional connection with raw food. And people who submit stories, I'm looking for other people's stories, especially. I have a few of my own, but I want other people's input. You don't have to be 100% raw. You don't even have to be really vegan. It could just be one experience you have had with raw food. And that's the whole idea, to show that anybody can have an experience with raw food, and it's not about perfection. And some of them will be sad stories, some of them will be happy stories, stories of success, stories of failure, whatever they are. And it'll probably be, I'm not giving myself a timeline because it's a labor of love and there's no rush with it. So maybe a year, maybe 2 years before it's fully finished and the graphics are all done and it's published.
That's so cool, Tara. That's beautiful. Now, you did just hit on something that I did want to cover with you. So if you can, tell us a little bit about how you have navigated in your immediate family and also in the broader culture since you have taken on this lifestyle. So like going, let's say going to visit with family for the holidays, if you still do that, or and interacting with people who are either receptive or not receptive. How do you get through all that?
I have the benefit of being a very strong personality, and I don't care what other people think of me, and I've never cared. And so my family knows that. So I have no problems making jokes or telling them to just straight up F off, leave me be. I have no qualms about that because I've just never cared what anybody thought of me. I just am the way I am. I know not everyone can be that way, but you have to stand up for yourself. This is your life, your body. You can do what you want to do. Nobody else's opinion matters unless you're 16 trying to live this lifestyle and your parents buy you food. But I do go home at Christmas most times to visit my family, and they don't eat anything I eat. I mean, my Aunt Lori does. She understands me, but they think she's weird too. Try to explain it as best as I can. But when they start getting real nitpicky with me, I just say, look, I'm eating this way. I'm not forcing you to eat this way, so back off.
Yeah.
I'm not criticizing what's on your plate. I could easily go into that if you would like to discuss it. I bet I could out-debate you. So if you want to go into that territory, let's do it. But if you like, then let's just drop it. And usually they're okay. They're used to it by now. They know by now I love the way I eat, and that's what I tell them. And they think it's weird, of course, but oh well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Until it'll be that way until they wake up. Yeah, yeah.
And maybe they never will. And I mean, my grandfather just had a quadruple bypass surgery. His arteries were 97% clogged, and no one woke up. Yeah. And I shook my head at that and go, "What are you doing?" And I told my father and my stepmother already. Said, if you guys end up in the hospital, I'm taking you and I'm feeding you bananas, and you have nothing to say about it, and that's the end of it. And they know if they were to get sick, I'm intervening, and they don't get a choice in the matter because I care more about their ability to live than eating crappy food and or some excuse to eat crappy food. So, and my partner's family eats very normal, what you consider normal as well, but they're actually very, very open, and they've been so supportive for us eating the way we eat, and we've been able to inspire a lot of them to eat more plant-based foods. And his sister and her his brother-in-law went almost full vegan, and they love it. And so it's in some ways it's amazing, in some ways it's very frustrating, and it always will be kind of that way.
Yeah. And did Ryan come to this through you, or did you guys kind of do it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when he met me, I just gotten this vegan tattoo on my hip, and I couldn't have clothing over it because I was afraid it was going to be ruined. So I had to kind of always have it showing. And it wasn't that I was trying to show off, but I just had to show it. And he went, "Oh, it's an interesting tattoo," when we first met at the gym that we were both going to. And he was open to it. His sister was raised vegetarian. She wouldn't eat meat from the time she was born. So he's open to the concept. And then I always just strategically left little PETA flyers all
Yeah.
and I left Earthlings up on my computer one night. Oh, hey Ryan, didn't you want to watch this movie? And so he kind of knew, but he was eating a chicken sub from Subway. And he went, "Oh, that Earthlings thing is up on your computer." And I went, "Oh yeah, I was just watching it earlier. Like I watch Earthlings in my spare time." Yeah, right. He went, "Oh, I'd love to see it." So I knew what point in the video where they talked about animal agriculture, factory farming. And it talked about cows and pigs and chickens in particular. And I turned it on. And for about 45 minutes we watched, and he just put his chicken sub down and he didn't eat it. And from that point out, he cut out red meat, so beef, but also pork as well. And then a few weeks later, he cut out chicken because he made that connection. And the biggest thing for him was the fish. And I finally asked him, I said, "Look, I love fish so much. I've always felt a connection, a really deep connection with fish," as weird as that sounds. And I asked him, "Please, please, will you, for me, not because you want to, but because it matters to me so much, would you be willing to stop eating fish?" And he said, "Yes, I would." And it's been a bit of a challenge for him, but he sees it now that fish are our greatest idea, or greatest what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it now. But you can tell that a fish doesn't want to be caught. I mean, you don't need any more proof than that. You catch it, tries everything to get away from you. It's gasping for breath. And as soon as you let it go, it's gone again. Like, I don't know why people can't make that connection.
I know what you're saying. It's a great example of freedom, the freedom of fish. Yeah.
They struggle more than any other animal, and if you were to do that on land to a deer, it would never be allowed. You couldn't hook it in the mouth and drag it along the ground and smother it underwater. You wouldn't be allowed to do that. Are you kidding me? But fish don't have facial expression, and it's their greatest downfall. It truly is. But he did give it up, and not give it up because he didn't. It's not like he's lacking. He loves his lifestyle, and he has seen so many benefits. He lost weight. He's gained muscle effortlessly. His acne cleared up. He has no allergies, and his allergies used to be terrible. So he's really happy that he did. Yeah.
Tara, thank you for everything you're doing, and thanks for taking the time to do this. I know you're busy, so I appreciate it.
That's okay. Today's a down day for me, so I'm happy to do it. I love these sorts of things so much because it always brings about different questions and ideas that I don't think of on my own. So it's really cool.
Good, good. All right. Thanks, Tara. Take care.
Thank you, Paul.